Right then, so we left our last chapter on a bit of a cliffhanger because Roman had snuck a donut out of his lunchbox into his pocket, but said it was the worst decision he'd ever made. Should we find out why it was such a bad decision? This wasn't just any old raspberry jam donut. It was a donut that would ruin my life. This was a deadly donut. Almost immediately, Rosie Taylor, aka Nosy Rosie, thrust her hand up in the air. She said, "I'm getting you done." Rosie Taylor sits next to me in class, and now I don't want to sound horrible, but she's got these big goggly frog eyes and small mean mouth like a slug's bum. Okay, I'm sorry, that was pretty mean. But both of these features are very handy for her hobbies, which are number one, spying on people, and number two, getting people into trouble. The other thing about Rosie, she absolutely hates me and always has done. I've never really understood why. You know, I'm pretty quiet and I don't like to bother other people. Shh, I said, please. I'm really Roman, said Mrs. MacDonald sharply, her big, round cheeks starting to turn red, which is a sign that she's getting cross. That's twice. Sit next to me on the bus. This was terrible. Perhaps not as bad as sitting next to Kevin The Vomcano Harrison. I suppose every cloud has a silver lining. Rosie Taylor gave me this smarmy look and then pulled out a little pocket mirror, began fiddling about with her hair. Another of her annoying habits. She seemed delighted that I was in trouble, even if it wasn't for the donut. Mrs. MacDonald! Mrs. MacDonald! Yelled Darren Gamble, leaping up and down and waving his arm about. Can I sit next to you too? Now, I've mentioned Darren Gamble a few times. He's this strange, twitchy kid in my class. Like a funny shaped head, looks a little bit like a baked bean. He only came to our school 3 weeks ago. According to him, here we go, he got expelled from St. Joseph's for accidentally setting fire to a nun. Seriously, a nun? Oh, I don't know if it's true, but he's always doing weird stuff like climbing on the school roof or eating worms. On his first day, he brought a dead magpie in his rucksack, and then another time he had to go to the hospital. He sucked the entire box of felt tip pens. All of the ink gone. Most of my class find him funny, but he just gives me collywobbles, so I try to avoid him. See, I don't like people that are unpredictable. If my life's like a jam donut, his is like an explosion in a bakery. Miss Clegg, Gamble's teaching assistant, looked up from the text message she was pretending not to send under the table. Good idea, she said, rubbing her eyes. She always sounds like she's yawning. I don't think Miss Clegg likes working with Gamble too much. I once heard her talking to another teaching assistant, and she called Gamble that snot-nosed little turd. It wasn't very nice. Another time, she broke wind in maths and blamed him. It wound him up so much that he drank a whole bottle of Tipex. I've got to say, I do feel a bit sorry for her. Until Gamble came along, Miss Clegg seemed to just float about the classes, doing the photocopying and stuff. Now, she's got to spend all the time with him in case he tries to destroy the place. It must be one of the worst jobs ever. Like washing a sumo wrestler's nappy or tasting cat food for a living. Mrs. MacDonald, I've got well good music on my iPod, said Gamble. We could share earphones, miss. All my favourite bands are on there. Hedgehog Bloodbath, the kitten slicers, cheese grater for your eyeballs. I've even got the new album, Sweaty Steve and the Exploding Grandmas. Totally banging, miss. You'll love it. Darren, I think I've told you before that I don't really like heavy metal music, said Mrs. MacDonald. You'll be with Miss Clegg. Miss Clegg went back to texting. Great. Stuck with him all day, I heard her mutter. Aw, Gamble moaned. Can't I sit on your lap, Mrs. MacDonald? You're my favouriteest teacher ever. No, I'm not sure why, but for some reason, Gamble loves Mrs. MacDonald. On his first day, he latched onto her like a veruca. She hasn't been able to get rid of him since. Did you take your tablets this morning, Darren? Mrs. MacDonald asked. Everybody giggled. No, miss, said Gamble, bouncing up and down in his chair. I gave them to the dog. Mrs. MacDonald closed her eyes, pinched the bridge of her nose. That sounds like animal cruelty to me. Gamble held up his hand to stop her. Don't worry, miss. It's for his own good. This week he's been a bit bitey. Bitey? She asked. Yeah, said Gamble. He always gets like that when he's got worms up his bum. Most of the class laughed. Mrs. MacDonald slapped her hand to her forehead. Kevin The Vomcano Harrison took deep breaths like he was going to throw up. Gamble grinned. Me uncle's the same when he gets worms up his... Thank you, Darren, interrupted Mrs. MacDonald. You and Miss Clegg had better sit behind me. This is going to be fun. The drive to the aquarium was definitely not fun. For a start, I couldn't sneak even a nibble of my donut while I was sat next to Mrs. MacDonald. She kept pointing out of the window and saying teachery things like, those clouds are called cumulus. Don't you think they look like fluffy flying guinea pigs? I shrugged and said nothing. Looked like clouds to me. And then on top of this, Kevin The Vomcano Harrison erupted before we'd even left the car park and spent the whole journey with his head in a bucket. He was across the aisle from me in the puker seat. You know, the one that they reserve at the front of the bus so the travel sick kids can see out of the windscreen. It smelled awful. Like old yoghurt mixed with satsumas. It kept turning to me between spews and saying things like, Roman, I think there's a cola bottle stuck in the back of my nose. And it's definitely getting milkier with every heave. It was horrible, but at least it killed my appetite for a while. And even worse, all the way to the aquarium, Gamble was shaking my chair violently and patting me on the head and pinching my ear. And he just kept on talking constantly. Rosie Taylor's telling everyone you've got a donut in your pocket. Can I have some donut? Mrs. MacDonald, give me some donut. Whenever Gamble's being annoying, Mrs. MacDonald and Miss Clegg try to ignore him. I think they expect him to get bored after a while. Never does. He's like a hyperactive wasp in a tin. At least the teachers also ignored what I was saying about the donut in my trousers, though. Even so, I knew I had to eat it soon. It was leaking jam into my pocket. I was relieved when we finally reached the aquarium and I could escape. Straight away, we had to line up in pairs. I was worried about how I'd end up with, but Mrs. MacDonald said she'd be Kevin The Vomcano Harrison's partner, just in case, and Gamble should stick with Miss Clegg. When she heard this, Miss Clegg looked up to the sky and said, "Oh, you're kidding me." She isn't very good at hiding her feelings. And I was left alone. Lovely stuff, I thought. I'll wait till it's quiet and eat my donut then. I'd just joined the back of the line when I felt a tap on my shoulder. "Would you like to be my partner?" said a voice. I turned around. Oh, hot potato! It was Jane Dixon. I almost coughed up a lung. Earlier, I said I don't like surprises. This is because, well, most surprises are terrible. Spider in your bed, the drawing pin on your chair, the sudden attack by your trousers, etc. However, this was completely different. As I sort of mentioned before, Jane Dixon is, number one, brainy. She sits at the clever table for everything and always has her work up on the board. Number two, she's well behaved. She's on the school council and she gets merits and certificates all the time. And number three, she's nice. She does loads of jobs for teachers and helps the little kids when they bump their knees in the playground. Well, what I didn't mention is that she's also, like, nice. If you know what I mean. She's got a nice head and a nice face. Her hair's nice too. It's like a brown waterfall. But not brown because the water's dirty. I mean, like brown like hot chocolate. She smells nice too, like strawberry flavoured washing powder. And the best thing about Jane though, her initials are JD. Just like my favourite snack, Jam Doughnut. Jane never normally talks to me. I guess she's like a beautiful golden donut in a glass case. Something that looks amazing, painfully out of reach. I spluttered. OMG, announced Rosie Taylor. She always says things like OMG or LOL. She thinks it makes her sound really cool and grown up. I disagree. Roman and Jane are boyfriend and girlfriend. The rest of the class gasped. But Jane Dixon calmly turned to Rosie and said 5 incredible words. So, what if we are? OMG.